Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV, ibi wọ́n ti ń dábì ẹ̀dùn tí wọ́n ń rọ̀ bí òwú. Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV, láti gbóhùn sáfẹ́fẹ́, láti ń dábì ẹ̀dùn tá ń rọ̀ bí òwú. Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV, Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV, ọgbọ́n bẹ, òye ń bẹ, ìdánilẹ́kọ̀ọ́ lóríṣiríṣi ní Gbàgede Ìmọ̀ TV. Ẹ máa wò ó, ẹ máa gbọ́.
Àfẹ́ akọ Ìgbòho like ọba nísìn tí gbogbo èèyàn lọ kí ó dé láyọ̀ àtàlàfíà. Ìsìn náà ọmọ Yorùbá ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ rí pé ó ṣe nǹkan dáadáa fáwọn àdúpẹ́, but ìgò kan kì í fọ́ nílé kó lẹ́ẹ̀mejì o. Kòtò tó jì sí lákọ̀ọ́kọ́ kó má tún jì sí. Ìgbòho ṣùgbọ́n afẹ́ ní sympathy àtọ́ with Nnamdi Kanu àádọ́tán. Ìtí bàbá yẹn ṣe l'Àbújá ti fi hàn wá pé Ìgbò àti Yorùbá ní anything dọ̀bára wa ṣe. Mi sọ south south ò fi bẹ́ẹ̀ bọ̀ ṣẹ́ ní south east Ìgbò yìí wọ́n ti sọ wá di rival. Wọ́n ti sọ wá di rival, wọ́n ti rí wa bí ẹni pé àjọ ń jìjà dùn kankan. Inú mi dẹ̀ dùn, mo gbà pé ìjọba ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ rí oh God àwọn Yorùbá sẹ́ bí tó bá wù yín ẹni mo campaign fún Tinubu wà láti yín nìyẹn. Bó èmi kàn sọ fún wa ni pé ṣé ẹ rí tá a bá fọwọ́ ara wa gbé góòdì tọ́lọ́ gbélé wa lọ́wọ́ dànù. Tí pàdàbà dé àfìyàjẹ góòdì o, àfìyàjẹ wa o. Bẹ́ẹ̀ lómi bá gba ìjọba ní 2027 tí ó bá ṣe Tinubu, Yorùbá dáràn gan gidi tààrà. Then life Igboho safe. Torí mo gbé sí tí ìjọba fún Ìgbò yẹn padà. Ìsìyẹ́ fi yé mi pé lódodo ni Tinubu dúró lẹ́yìn Ìgbòho. Kí láàrin Yorùbá fẹ́ o? A fẹ́ ni tó máa bá wa dúró tọmọ wa, tó máa gbìjà. À ń ké láti dọ́ ìyá ń pariwo àṣẹ Tinubu ń gbọ́. Àṣẹ ó retí kẹ́nìkan síwájú kóhun lò lórí yẹn. And he right on that. Ìyẹn ò sọ̀rọ̀ tá a máa sọ tá ń bí. Bàbá wa Ládọjà Ọlọ́run ló sábàbí. Bàbá wa Ládọjà gba oríyìn yẹn, Ìgbòho wọn free yẹn. Níbi tán ti lọ ṣe program yìí, oníkálukú ṣe goodwill. Nígbà tí ọba ilẹ̀ Yíbò yìí máa dìde, ló bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní rún ọ̀rọ̀ Sunday Igboho mẹ́yìn àti Nnamdi Kanu. Ló yà wọ́n lẹ́nu, ìjọba fi Igboho sílẹ̀, counterpart dẹ̀ ní Igboho pẹ̀lú Kanu. Ìkan náà dán ni wọ́n, ìkọ̀kan náà lọ́jọ́ ń jà fún, ìkọ̀kan náà lọ́jọ́ ń ṣe. Ìjọba Igboho àti Kanu ò jọ ṣe ìkọ̀kan náà. I often said it. Igboho is never a terrorist. Kanu was a terrorist. Àbí kí n ṣe lórí ìsìn. He's a terrorist. Ìsìn ni màá lò. Because nǹkan mo lé lórí nìyẹn. Terrorism ni wọ́n fi kàn án. Wọ́n dẹ̀ mú evidence jáde. Wọ́n mú proof jáde. Wọ́n mú fact jáde. You don't know law. Láriwo tó ń pa Christian go against the prophet evidences tí wọ́n mú jáde against it. Instead kó punch your evidences yẹn, you don't know law ló ń pariwo tó fi convicted. You don't know law. You don't know law. Because the man that was the judge happens to be a Yoruba man. Hatred ti Igbo ní síwájú too much. Tẹ́ bá sọ pé mò ń ṣe tribalism, so be it wà láti yín nìyẹn. But tí mò ń sọ lẹ́nìí, ó máa jájó wa lójú lọ́la, God forbid. Tó fẹ́ pé lódodo ní 2027 next year náà lè declare Yoruba nation. What becomes of us by that 2027? The only saving grace tí Yorùbá ní, tí Igboho náà dẹ̀ ní, ó ní kí Yorùbá padà síbẹ̀ 2027. Ó ní kí ẹ̀ pé kó má jẹ́ Tinubu, bọ̀ kó sá jẹ́ Yorùbá. Kó dẹ̀ jẹ́ blooded Yorùbá. Kó jẹ́ ìyá àti bàbá ẹ̀ jẹ́ Yorùbá pure. Kó padà síbẹ̀ kó lọ lóko Yorùbá yẹn tán. Beside that, 2027 Yorùbá will go nowhere. Tí Fúlàní bá padà síbẹ̀, Yorùbá dáràn. tí Igbo bá padà síbẹ̀ counter even times 2 tiẹ̀ nìyẹn tiẹ̀ because we can see the hatred tí ọba yẹn fi sọ̀rọ̀ and it's just 1 out of 100 wọ́n videos tàti rí tó ti ṣe tó ti fi hatred ní wọn against Yorùbá kan ní tó máa ń yà mí lẹ́nu máa ń wá àwọn Yorùbá agitators mi they will be telling Nnamdi Kanu pàápàá jùlọ Koiki has to put an end to it now. He has to stop it now. Nnamdi Kanu is never our family, it's never our relations. Go and watch the video tí bàbá yẹn ṣe. Bàbá yẹn jẹ́ kó yé wa pé counterpart nǹkan kan náà ọ̀daràn kan náà ní Nnamdi Kanu àti Igboho wọn ọ̀dẹ́ ń ṣe kan náà. Ààrí fídíò kankan mú jáde níbi tí Igboho ti instigate violence. Níbi tí Igboho ti sọ pé ẹ lọ pa wọ́n bí ẹ lọ bọ́ọ̀nù bẹ̀yẹ if we fail to believe that video go and watch it, it is there on social media. Ẹ lọ burn police station down, make sure you kill that police officer, make sure you know how many people that lost their life. Monday sit at home, who instigated it? Gbogbo àwọn ESN kìíní kan, who instigated it? Ṣebí Nnamdi Kanu ló dá wọn lẹ̀. Ẹ dárúkọ ẹ fi ẹmú méjì jáde nínú violence organization tí Igboho tó dálẹ̀ nígbà tó ṣì ní freedom. Ẹnìkan ti ẹ̀kọ́ sínú social media pé which Igboho are you talking about? Igboho is just a content creator. N tó ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀ dẹ̀ ni kò pẹ́ ní o parọ́ ó wà lórí Facebook ó dẹ̀ dùn mí bá screenshot comment yẹn. Ó ní which Igboho are you talking about? Ọmọ Yíbò ni. Ó ní which Igboho are you comparing with Nnamdi Kanu? Nnamdi Kanu meant business but Igboho is just a content creator. It's more or less gbogbo tí Igboho ṣe pátá violence free ní gbogbo nǹkan tó ṣe.
la fi mọ bá ilẹ̀kẹ̀ la fi mọ jòjì èdè wa làmì ìdání mọ́ wá. pẹ̀lú ìgbìyànjú kí èdè Yorùbá kó má dohun ìgbàgbé kó má dohun àfisẹ́yìn tẹ́gun fi sọ. ọ̀mọ̀wé Gbénga Fágbọnú ti kó o jáde. dictionary Yorùbá aláwòrán kúnlẹ́kàkì òkun fọ́fọ́ láti ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ dópin ló ṣàtúpalẹ̀ àwọn ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá tó ta kókó pẹ̀lú àlàyé lẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́ látẹnu olùkọ́ àgbà. kò ṣe é mà níní fún gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá o àgbàlagbà tàbí àwọn ọmọdé ìsẹ̀yìn. àwọn àkójọpọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ Yorùbá tó ta kókó tó lé ní ẹgbẹ̀rún mẹ́tàlá pẹ̀lú àwọn àwòrán tí yóò mú òye ọ̀rọ̀ yéni ní kankan. dictionary Yorùbá ti wà jákèjádò ilé ìtajà àti ilé ìkàwé jákèjádò àgbáńláyé. fẹ̀yìn tẹ́ ẹ fẹ́ rà tàbí tẹ́ ẹ fẹ́ kun lẹ́kọ̀ọ́ janturu. ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà ní United Kingdom ẹ̀jẹ̀ kò sí ìyáàfin Dorcas Amusan Fagbonu ní 119 Little Houghton Lane Bradford BD5 OHT tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí +447401222557. ẹ̀yin tẹ́ wà lórílẹ̀‐èdè Amẹ́ríkà ẹ máa pọ̀ sí ọ̀gbẹ́ni Olúwaṣọ́ṣọ́yà ní 601 Cypress Station TR Unit 510 Austin Texas tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ +175727735552. ẹ̀yin ti Europe ẹ kàn sí ìyáàfin Mary Bogner Eriksbo Pisbo Ostergaard 324244 Angel Gogibog City ní Sweden tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí +4673832999. ẹ̀yin torílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà ìrọ̀rùn ló bá dé o ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn ẹ máa kàn sí bàbá gbàgede ìmọ̀ tẹlifíṣàn tàbí kẹ́ ẹ pè wọ́n sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 08130672361. ẹ̀yin ti ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀yọ́ ẹ pè ọ̀mọ̀wé Victor Taiwo sórí ẹ̀rọ ọ̀bánisọ̀rọ̀ yìí 08126923916. kò ṣe é mẹ́ni ní o fún gbogbo ọmọ Yorùbá o.
I am a Nigerian. I wear no glasses in relation to my country. I see Nigeria in its ugly nudity at any point in time.
Ugly nudity?
Oh, very ugly country.
Your country?
Very, very ugly country.
Are you ugly?
Unfortunately, every Nigerian is rendered ugly by his circumstances unless we continue to lie to ourselves. I spent 3 weeks in prison. I had no business being there. And I saw multiple persons who had no business in that prison either.
In Ekiti?
Yes. Multiple persons. There were 11 persons in my cell. I vouchsafed that at least 9 of them had no business being there.
What were they doing there?
The Nigerian state decided that they should spend some time there. Maybe somebody offended someone. Maybe some civil case that should have been settled in a civil manner or in civil court was criminalized because somebody knew policeman.
What was the prison like?
Horrible. Any Nigerian in prison who does not have external help, who doesn't get somebody from outside bringing something or the other for his sustenance, who is completely dependent on the Nigerian prison service for his sustenance, I warrant without any hesitation that such a person will be dead in less than 6 months.
But they are not dead.
Multiple are dying every day.
In prison?
Yeah.
You saw that?
Let me put it this way. By the time I got to Ekiti prison, the state of that prison was only made better by the grace of certain persons, both in his administration and even prisoners, who took concerted effort to ensure that they minimize. But when you see the objective living conditions of the inmates, any inmate in Nigerian prison who is dependent on the food served in that prison would die under 3 months.
So how do they survive?
A lot of people are self-feeding. Now, where they're not self-feeding, they find ways to augment their meals.
How do they get the money to do
People
that?
bring things from those who have family members. People bring food for them from outside. Those who do not have family members are largely dependent on the charity of fellow prisoners. Some are dependent on the mercy. And you can imagine the kind of mercies available to the prisoner in prison. I didn't see most of these because they were obviously hidden from me. Efforts were made to keep me segregated. Not that I was victimized in any way, but as you can well imagine, the system was not interested in me seeing a lot of things.
They treated you as VIP.
No, I wasn't treated different from others, but suffice to say that within the prison system, some things were kept away from me. Let me just put it that way. People were told to be on their best behavior. People were being on guard, being careful without they related with me. But of course, if I'm in the prison population, I will know things within the prison population. There are things I know, for instance, from my time in Ekiti. Because I do not see how it would impact positively on the lives of the inmates that I left behind, I kept quiet about them. Simply because anything I say would only worsen their situation. If I'm going to say something or do something that will not positively impact the lives of the inmates, I've been very careful not to do that. People are already managing a bad situation. I know prison officers who spend their money on medication for prisoners. So how do I say something against such persons? I can only speak against the system that placed them in a condition where their poor pay still subsidizes medication for desperate prisoners. I saw it with my own eyes. And I'm saying without any hesitation, anybody in Nigerian prison who eats the Nigerian prison food for only 3 months, in fact, he can't survive 3 months. Within a month, the person had to have been extremely well, in good health, before he will survive up to 3 months in the Nigerian prison system.
Did you taste the food?
God forbid.
You didn't even taste the food?
I did not. I couldn't. I'm sure that if I had attempted to, I would have probably... Look, let me put it this way. I went off to boarding school at 10. I can possibly live with any condition. I slept the deepest when I was in prison.
The deepest?
Yes. I slept the deepest when I was in prison.
You had no worries?
Why would I? There is no sleep that is better than the one where you sleep with a clear conscience. I knew in prison that I had no reason to be there, and I knew it was a matter of time before I'll come out. I told the people who were taking me to Ekiti, on the way to Ekiti, that I'll spend 3 months with you. That the worst that will happen is I'll spend 3 months. But after 3 months, I'll come out. This was what I said to my abductors as we were going to Ekiti.
Abductors?
They were abductors because they did not carry me pursuant to any law. They followed the whim of a man and they executed the wishes of a cabal. There was no law.
A cabal?
Yes. That cabal comprised of policemen, judges, and lawyers. And all they did was to abduct me. How do you arrest a man from his office in Lagos? If I was wanted by the police in Surulere in Lagos, that police in Surulere will report in the police station in my neighborhood before they will come to my house to serve me my arrest warrant. These ones came all the way from Ekiti. They crossed 5 state lines. They did not report in any police station anywhere. They came straight to my office. They'd been loitering around for weeks, tracking me. And then they came to my office and abducted me. You will remember that I did give a press conference the day before I was abducted, where I made clear that I was aware that there is a plan to abduct and take me.
You saw the signs.
I had sufficient intelligence that some people were coming. I had enough intelligence.
So why didn't you go to meet them?
They didn't invite me. I was not served any papers. It was a you see, the first I became aware of these abductors was when they abducted a pastor from a church where I had spoken a couple of weeks before they got to Lagos. And when they abducted this pastor, they said, oh, they tracked my number and they realized that I phoned him. He said, yes, I came to speak in their church. He said, you should call me. He said, he can't call me. It doesn't have anything to do with me. He's just the head of protocol in his own church. And I was the head pastor that gave him the duty to interface with me on the day that I was coming to their church. So that was the first I became aware. And then I dug. You can't live in Nigeria, do what I do, and walk blind. At some level, you have to develop some level of intelligence gathering as well. So I sent out the feelers and I got sufficient intelligence to know that a cabal walking out of Ado Ekiti, purportedly on behalf of Chief Afe Babalola, had procured people to abduct me. But I wasn't, look, I knew that I could have left Nigeria because I knew it wasn't official. So I could have left. I was even advised to leave and I refused. I wasn't going to run away from Nigeria. I hadn't done anything to be running away from anybody. And I was happy to face my accusers.
Mr. Farotimi, what were you thinking when you wrote this book?
It wasn't about what I was thinking. It was about me deciding that I couldn't live with myself if I know the things I know and I found the grace to be quiet. I would have become complicit in the evil that I sought to expose by writing that book if I had kept quiet about it. We can speak tangentially about judicial corruption and speak in general terms, scandalize people without naming names. What I did was to write from my own experience. I didn't sit in a beer parlor to gossip. It wasn't some back room somewhere. I sat down and I wrote speaking to my own experience. I didn't speak in innuendos. I wasn't even suggesting. I spoke to the truth of what I witnessed.
Your own truth?
It's not my own truth. When you say your own truth, there is a subjectivity to your own truth. Truth is universal. If it is your own truth, then it becomes your own fact.
Your truth that annoyed people.
The truth that, you see, the problem with this is that the truth is not a respecter of persons. That you are annoyed by the truth makes me happy. If I had lied and you are annoyed, then I'll feel sad.
We are talking about criminal defamation.
If I have criminally defamed anybody, they should take me to court now.
They have taken you to court.
No, they did not. They abducted me. There is no law on criminal defamation in Ekiti State. It is not part of the books in Ekiti State. As much as persons might love to label something criminal, the fact that a thing has been said that you don't like does not make it criminal. I wouldn't even have any problem defending myself in a court against that allegation, even if it is sustained as criminal defamation. The question is this: is it the truth? If it is the truth, it cannot be criminal. You are the one who has committed a criminal offense if what I am alleging is criminal. So if we were living in a state where the law rules, these offenses have been committed against the law, against the court. I should not be the one being asked to defend myself. If anything, I should be asked to substantiate what I have said. There is nothing I have said that is not fully substantiated in the book. What I said was done in the face of the court. Each and every last proof of the crimes that I have alleged are in the court's own files.
You know, the court has given an injunction that this book should not be produced or distributed. Can we say your book is now in the black market?
Let me put it this way. Yoruba sọ pé àti ìkófá nílẹ̀ Ifá tí ń ṣe. We are not done saying what the Ifa corpus has predicted. The predictions are already coming true. I came into the public space and I spoke of a criminal justice system in a book. And the system acted to prove each and every last one of the words that I had used in describing it. Even the way I was treated was criminal in the extreme. So when somebody...
How were you adopted?
I was in my office. I had a meeting with a young gentleman who was coming to see me. And I was also meant to be seeing Chief Adebanjo that morning in Lekki. And whilst I was on my way to Chief Adebanjo's house, I got a call from my assistant that somebody was waiting for me in the office, a reminder of the call I had in the office. So I decided, let me see that person first, and then I'll see Baba before going back to my house. When I got to my office, when I entered, I noticed a gentleman in the waiting room that I didn't know, but I thought maybe he came to see one of the lawyers. I greeted him and just went to my own office. The person who was waiting to see me, we were in my office together. Less than 3 minutes after I sat down, these men burst into my office ununiformed, wearing RRS cap, assaulting my staff. Physically assaulting my staff. The cretin I saw in the reception downstairs was Chief Afe Babalola's chief of security. He physically assaulted one of my staff. He's on camera. We have it on record.
Were you assaulted?
No, nobody touched me. Nobody touched me. Nobody touched me. I was taken against my will, but I was not physically touched.
Did you struggle with them?
Nah, there was no point. I don't argue with a madman carrying guns. What's the point? He was carrying guns. I could see he was police, and I already knew that I knew where they were coming from. I had foreknowledge of where they were from. So it wasn't so much of a surprise, truth be told. I had sufficient information that they were on their way.
When you were writing, did you in any way see the days ahead?
If you read if you even go to the beginning of this book.
Can I even read from this book now?
Oh, please, you go ahead.
You remember there's a court injunction.
Listen, there were a total of 4 civil suits that were filed whilst I was in prison. One was in Ogun State. They've withdrawn that one now. I think it's been struck out. Another one was in Rivers State, in Port Harcourt. That one has also been struck out now. There is one here in Ibadan. I came for that one this morning. There are no substances to these cases. People just abused the judicial system to try to kill a book they disagree with. But I'm pretty certain...
Was it the book they are dealing with or you?
Nobody can deal with me. They are dealing with the book. They are wasting their time dealing with me. I've already dealt with myself before anybody can deal with me. What are you going to do to me that I haven't done to myself? You put me in a prison, you are just giving me holiday. I slept better in prison than I sleep in my own house.
Afe Babalola has dropped the case against you?
Did he ever have a case against me? He never had a case against me.
So what was dropped?
What was dropped was the ego trip. Some people convinced the old man that I had slandered him, libeled him. I didn't do any such thing. I merely told the truth. And it wasn't about him. I didn't say Afe and the criminal justice system. I said Nigeria and the criminal justice system. Whatever he did that I disagreed with is available to all the other persons in the system. Is not unique to Chief Afe Babalola. What he did, the things I have alleged in this book, I'm not even sure the old man himself was aware of the things that were done in his name. But what I alleged is that this is the normal thing. Because if it wasn't normal, the moment it was brought to their attention, even if they didn't know that they were perpetrating a fraud against the court, the moment it was brought to their notice, it should have been sufficient for them to pull back. But it didn't happen like that. So it wasn't at any point about the person of Chief Afe Babalola. I'm interested in a judicial system that delivers justice to everybody. I'm not interested in scandalizing a human being. If all I achieve is to scandalize a person and the person dies, just as I would die someday, what would I have gained? That would be personal. This is not personal. It's about rescuing a system. It is said that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. When the common man can no longer find any hope in a judicial system that is so hopelessly compromised that at its highest level in the Supreme Court, you cannot even expect to get justice. If you can find such brazen miscarriage of justice in the Supreme Court, where do you expect to find it? In the magistracy? So it was never about his person.
Have you spoken to him since then?
I never spoke to him before. We have nothing to discuss after.
So throughout those days,
we have nothing to discuss. I have nothing to say to the old man. I never had any problem with him as a person.
But people went to him on your behalf.
They didn't go on my behalf. They went on a face-saving journey of their own choice.
Even Peter Obi?
Peter Obi did not go to beg on my behalf. One of the first things I told Peter Obi, and I said so in front of at least 10 persons in prison when he came to see me, the first thing I said to him was that do not make the error of going to beg anybody on my behalf.
You told him that?
In prison.
He came
to the
prison.
hearing of multiple persons in prison. Why would anybody be begging on my behalf? That would mean that everything I've labored for, the totality of my willingness to spend as long as it takes in prison would have been devalued. Why would I be what did I do to be begging anybody? That was how I was told that the Oni and some people found some pilgrimage to Chief Afe's house and they claimed they were begging. I did not send anybody to beg on my behalf. The first I heard about the Oni's excursion to Afe Babalola's house was on the news like every other person.
Did you say excursion?
It was an excursion. The moment I was dragged into it as if I was the one who sent anybody there, it became an excursion.
But they cared about you.
They didn't care anything about me. They cared about saving the face of the person they went to visit.
They love you, don't you think so?
Oh, please. Oh, please. The Oni is not unknown to me. I've known him. I've known the Oni for close to 3 decades. He was aware when I was abducted. Some persons called him and he didn't even take their calls. I was already out of prison at the time you are talking about him going to beg on my behalf. How do you go and beg on somebody's behalf without talking to the person? The last time I had any communication with the Oni was when my father died. That's over 10 years ago.
You know him personally?
He is the younger brother of a dear friend, and he was my younger brother's mate, I think at Loyola College. Is it Loyola or St. Patrick? Which one? That one that is around Old Ife Road. Yeah, that would be Loyola.
Loyola, yeah.
Yeah. So we are not strangers to each other, but we have not spoken a word to each other since when my father died. So how could somebody that I haven't spoken with in 10 years, whom I did not send on an errand, purportedly went to Ado-Ekiti to go and beg on my behalf, and then he was dropping that silly threat about they've talked to this person, whatever the person's eyes saw. Am I the one somebody will be threatening? I don't respond well to threats, and that's why I'm even speaking on the subject the way I'm speaking now. I did not send anybody anywhere. They went on their own excursion.
You have no regrets writing this book?
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. What have I done to regret? I wrote a book that is found on truth.
Have you challenged the injunction restraining the distribution?
Each and every one of the suits that were filed against me are being rigorously defended. Every last one of them. We have preliminary objections in the suit in Lebanon and the one in the Federal Capital Territory. Those are the only two that still subsist. We have preliminary objections in relation to both. The one in Abuja is ruled, he has adjourned for his ruling. I expect all these silly injunctions to disappear in little or no time because there is no substance to them.
So with time we'll read this book again?
I will read it any day of the week without believing that I have breached any injunction because the injunctions in question are in themselves.
So I can read?
Oh, why not?
Will I go to prison?
Maybe they'll give you a cell next to mine.
A cell next to yours?
Oh, yeah. I'm always happy to go.
Okay. You said I should read?
Be my guest.
I like reading your preface. Because somehow, if you read the preface and introduction
It
of your
tells
book,
you a lot about what you're about to read.
in fact, you've read the book.
Yeah.
Okay, look at what you said in the preface. In the banned book, Dele Farotimi says, when you begin to deal with the technicalities of the rules of court, administration of court, well, maybe he might perform some magic in that regard. But insofar as it relates to delivery of justice, I expect nothing.
That's just it. Look, every system is designed to deliver an end. The design intention conditions the outcome. The Nigerian judicial system cannot afford to uphold the law. If Nigeria should allow the law to rule, the country itself will collapse under its inherent contradictions.
Collapse?
It will collapse under the weight of its own intrinsic contradictions.
So we will not allow...
That is why the law does not rule in Nigeria. What you have in Nigeria is the administration of impunity. We don't have the rule of law. They can't afford to have it.
Look at what you said here. The Nigerian judiciary is the exact same as the Nigerian police, customs,
That's just
the
the truth.
immigration,
Yes.
and every other part of our putrid society.
Why would you expect the judiciary to be different from every other part? Is the blood flowing in your arm different from the one flowing to your brain? You see, there is this mass delusion in Nigeria. You want to believe that your judiciary is some bastion of justice. How?
You said the truth has become transactional in our country, and in its transactional form has equally assumed the toga of subjectivity, where every single truth has to pass through the test of subjectivity before it might be accepted as truth. But I am comforted by the knowledge that the truth is the only weapon that is capable of slaying the Nigerian monster.
That's the truth.
What is the Nigerian monster?
Impunity is the Nigerian monster. Every last evil that you behold in Nigeria today is directly traceable to the administration of impunity. If the law will rule in Nigeria, the bulk of the madness will disappear. But when you have a society that has been built on impunity, the police administers impunity. They decide who to arrest and who not to arrest. 10 persons might drive down a one-way street. They are not arresting all 10. One of them might even come with siren. They would salute as he drives down the one-way street. But the poor man driving in his bolekaja on that one-way street, the law will apply to him. In fact, the judge will throw the entire book at him. He will go to prison if it is prescribed for the same offense.
Èèyàn mi ẹ káàárọ̀ ẹ káàsán ẹ kálẹ́ níbikíbi tẹ́ bá ti ń gbọ́ wa. Èmi ni ọmọ yín Mariam Aláòyé Nurudeen ọmọ Gbàgbàgàdì mọ̀. Bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe mọ̀ food package òun ni ìta ti mú wá fún eléyìí tó jẹ́ pé ẹ lè fi oúnjẹ sínú àwọn àpò kéékèèké àbáwọn àpò báyìí tẹ̀lé ha nígbà Ramadan àbí ẹ ní ìnáwó kọ̀ọ̀kan tó ń bọ̀ tẹ̀ ń wá souvenir tẹ̀lé fún àwọn èèyàn. Kò sí nǹkan tí ẹ lè fi eléyìí ṣe o. Ẹ lè pín nígbà Ramadan lecture yín àbí kẹ́ fún àwọn aláìní nínú oṣù Ramadan tó ń bọ̀ yìí. Àti wá pín àwọn nǹkan yìí sí ọ̀nà oríṣiríṣi. Àpò kéékèèké 1 kg ní títí dórí 5 kg fún ẹ̀wà, gàrí àbí ìrẹsì tẹ́ bá fẹ́ ṣe. Ẹ kàn sí wa lórí nọ́mbà tó ń hàn lórí amóhùnmáwòrán rẹ̀. Gbogbo information tẹ́ need láti make a decision yín ó ti wà lórí fídíò yìí. Ẹ kàn sí wa lórí WhatsApp àbí kẹ́ kílíkì website address wa fún gbogbo information tẹ́ need láti make decision. Ẹ ṣeun gan. Ramadan Kareem.
Of what is happening to us that differs. Nigeria happens to the Nigerian every day. We seek to prevent Nigeria from happening to us. Sometime in the morning, you find Nigerians waking up and crouching on the floor and praying against all the dangers of the country that they have built. So Nigeria is happening to them on a daily basis. And it happens to me as well. If I had to get up in my house at 4:29 this morning in order to make a court date in Ibadan when I shouldn't even be here in the first place, it begins to tell you about how Nigeria happens to us variously. Every time you have to do something that was not meant to be done, but you have to do it to survive the country in which you live, that is Nigeria happening to you. When you have to get out of your house as early as 5 o'clock in the morning to make your office for 8 o'clock, that is Nigeria happening to you. When you have to pay out of pocket for children's school fees when the education is meant to be free even at primary school level, or these children are going to schools that are best teaching illiteracy and you have to go out of pocket to get good schools, that is Nigeria happening to you. Nigeria happens to the Nigerian on a daily basis. Whether you are poor, rich, members of the ruling class, or one of their victims, Nigeria happens to all of us every day. It's the degree to which we are conscious of what is happening to us that differs from person to person.
Degree of consciousness.
Yeah, degree of consciousness.
What does that mean?
You have some nabulists in place of citizens. Persons who are sleepwalking through life, perpetually making excuses for their oppressors and ruiners instead of focusing on what is happening to them and how to prevent that from being passed down to the next generation. They would rather make excuses on behalf of those who are ruining their lives. So it's a function of consciousness. If you are unaware of the fact that you are oppressed, you are more receptive to the idea of oppression. But the more aware you become, the more conscious you are, the more you can articulate the condition of the victim, you become a danger to the oppressive system, and you become an irritant to those who have become accepting of oppression. So,
well, in your book, you accepted that there's the weaponization of ignorance.
Yeah. The fact that I can identify it is suggestive of the fact that I'm not affected by that weaponized ignorance. The average Nigerian sit down on a daily basis and they are busy consuming news written for them by those who are looking to shape the narrative and focus their attention away from the real issues. They are told that it's the Christians. They are told that it's the Muslims. And these are coming through supposedly credible news channels. You do not have a media that questions any longer. Largely, the Nigerian media has become complicit. So who is teaching anybody? The weaponized ignorance comes in multiple fashion. Today in Nigeria, you don't have a national curriculum that is known to all. You don't have a national education curriculum that we can interrogate. It comes out piecemeal at the discretion of whoever is administering the system whenever they care, which is why you are getting all kind of funny textbooks coming out and being flagged. Nobody can tell you that this is the national curriculum. That is the beginning of the weaponization of ignorance. I identified weaponized ignorance for the first time in 1994 as an undergraduate. That was the first time I used that phrase. I could see the deliberate under-education of the Nigerian child. So if we're talking weaponized ignorance, you must understand that it's not a one-line item. It's a systemic thing. The weaponized ignorance has affected the trade. You don't have tradesmen any longer. Where you have them, they are barely literate. You have tailors who do not even understand the geometry of the human body. So they sew for you sometimes, you wear a shirt and you find that one part is taller than the other side and then it's looking like a carpenter sewed the shirt. That is part of the weaponized ignorance. Everything is degraded. The human capacity to imagine, to function, and to even execute instructions have been degraded when you deliberately ignore to train people to the point where a country as rich and blessed as Nigeria has over 130 million children. Those are the ones between the ages of 5 to 14 out of school. 30 million. What kind of future are you expecting from children that you are refusing to train?
So will you want to blame the ignorant for not understanding that the oppressor is after him?
You see, the Yorubas have a proverb I would attempt to translate. And what it says is that ẹni tó gbọ́n la kọ́ ẹni tó gọ̀. The wise will teach the ignorant. But that presumes the readiness of the ignorant to learn. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, especially those of us who presume to know, who are looking to teach, we're competing with a system that has weaponized even religion. Religion in its root comes from the Latin word religare, or you go to Old French, religio. Both of them means the same thing, to bind. But what is being bound by religion is the human imagination, which is the seat of our creativity. You then come to a place like Nigeria where religion has been weaponized to the point where charlatans are touting all kind of funny precepts and principles and dogmas are being taught, and people are embracing them as truth. People are telling you they enter toilet in one European country to come out in the toilet in another European country. People are telling you to fast and pray for Nigeria when they didn't fast and pray to build all the prayer cities and redemption camps that they are building all over the place. People are telling you to embrace Sharia. Meanwhile, the Sharia that they are embracing here does not build the kind of fantastic countries that have been built in the Emirates or even in Saudi Arabia. Religion has become a destructive force, an excuse for not doing anything, for inaction, for cowardice. So when you talk about ignorance, you must understand that in the Nigerian context, the ignorance that is already weaponized against the people by the refusal to educate or by the intention to miseducate is compounded by the fact that religion is layered on top of that, and it does not promote the use of the human intellect. If anything, it says leave everything to God.
I have read your books. The Imperatives of the Nigerian Revolution and this, Do Not Die in Their War. Look at this. If you read these books, you will walk through the mind of the author, Dele Farotimi. So having read your work, I come out with the conclusion that he is a radical intellectual. Then if he's an intellectual and he resides in an ignorant nation, has he failed?
Well, let me put it this way. When I started out, I imagined that I could change my country by sheer force of persuasion. And then I found very quickly that I embraced what I these days describe as the Elijah complex. The Elijah complex is the one that leads you into believing that you are the only one that knows how to do it. And if you can't do it, then it simply can't be done. Remember, Elijah was busy calling fire from heaven, burn the offering, pour water and all. He did all those mighty works, and then he heard that Jezebel was after him, and he ran to the cave of Adullam and he started crying, I'm the only one that is left of all your God said, shut up. I got 7,500 you know nothing about. So I learned very early in life that I must never presume that simply because of the insignificance of my own contribution or my inability to dent the mountain that I see in front of me, I learned not to despair. I learned very quickly that I should just play my own role. Other people will do their own part. It might be in this season or it might be in a time to come. I learned long time ago not to allow myself to be bothered by the frustrations of my environment. The fact of the matter is that I take comfort in knowing that I speak timeless truths. I write timeless truths. If and when the time comes for a generation that will make use of what I have written, of the things I'm saying, they will find their way to rectitude.
This generation is already reading you.
I had to get away from assuming that this generation would do it. When I was embracing my Elijah complex, I was assuming that because I see hopelessness in this generation, I see a defeated people. I see a people born defeated, willing to accept all kind of madness. Even when you speak on their behalf, they are the first to cast you down for simply having the audacity to say what they are refusing to say, even though you are speaking to their pains.
Do you care?
The point where I stopped caring was when I arrived at the position that I'm actually not writing for this generation. I'm not talking for this generation.
You said you are writing for history.
I'm writing for posterity. I'm writing for another generation that will come on. The truth is the truth is the truth, regardless of where and when it is spoken.
But I'm saying you have written for this generation.
I have written. It is for this generation to decide whether what I am saying works for them. I know that what I have said, the things I have written, are found untruthful precepts. Now, whether my society is accepting of the truth or not is a different ballgame entirely. But I have evolved to a point, perhaps of arrogance, where I am not bothered by the acceptance of my society. I couldn't care less whether this society embraces me or accepts the truth of what I have said to them, because I know of the timelessness of truth and the godly nature of truth. I know that as long as the things I have written are found on truth, it will resonate with a generation that desires to return to normalcy. They would also be able to retrace their steps back to the point where we lost the battle, if we lose the battle. But it is critical that we tell these truths. It was a wise man that said that the truth that is untold is not the truth. It is only the truth we tell that is the truth. If you know a truth and you prefer to keep quiet and you found a reason to be silent, the reality is that that truth is not told. Truth dies in darkness. I think it was the New York Times that had that as their masthead at some point in the past, or maybe Washington Post. I'm not sure which one now, but truth dies in darkness. If you do not articulate the truth, it dies.
But this generation loves you.
See, this generation looks for messiahs. I am not a messiah. I'm just Delefaro to me, another Nigerian, warts and all, with all the weaknesses of every other human being. I don't need them to love me. I need them to act on the truth that they know. We find it very comfortable and convenient to point fingers at our ruiners. But the reality is that the true change that Nigeria desires or demands or needs has to come from the individual coming to the knowledge of the fact that we cannot continue like this. If there is no personal regeneration, there cannot be national regeneration.
If there is ignorance, we need a lot of mental work to drive them.
There are two levels of ignorance.
Okay.
There is the ignorance that is visited on a man, and then there is the willful ignorance. The most damaging of ignorance that I have seen in Nigeria is the willful ignorance. The one where a man is confronted with the truth. He is right there in front of him. He can see it. You've articulated it. The evidences of his own eyes, his ears, and his God-given brain is suggestive of the fact that he should do a course correction. But the person's ability to process the truth has been impaired either by religion, ethnicity, or sometimes a combination of both. They simply cannot process the information. You're telling someone that the fact that this man is from your ethnic nation does not mean it's the best thing for our country. And you say, no, it's our turn. Yes, it's our turn. I've heard you. But would you employ this person in your poultry if you were running a poultry? Say, like, would you have this person as your son-in-law? Say, God forbid. But you want this person in charge of the Commonwealth? The biggest problem we have in Nigeria, yes, we have ignorance, but the willfulness of the ignorance, the deliberate refusal to be enlightened, to be educated. You even see certificated morons. People with PhDs, master degree, and they are refusing the evidence of their own eyes. That has nothing to do with, it's not plain ignorance. That's deliberate. It's intentional. Somebody is being intentionally blind. I'm saying remove the blindfold in your eyes. I can see the look at this. No, I've been told he's white. Okay, they told you he's white. I'm showing you he's red. You can see it. You say, no, I don't want to look at it. That is willful ignorance. And that is the most common kind of ignorance in Nigeria.
How did you develop your consciousness?
My brother, sometimes I wish I knew. If I know how to get rid of it, I'll get rid of it, because ignorance is bliss. I've carried this around with me since before I was 17 years old. Let's just say sense was slapped into me. I recounted the incident in Do Not Die in Their War, where a policeman slapped me when I was in Oscars. That was what slapped me awake to the reality of the country in which I live. I have always had this romantic view of life. I grew up a bookworm. And if you're a reader, you're really bound to a geographical location. So I read all kinds of books and I saw myself as a citizen. I had all the lofty ideas of citizenship in my head, all kind of lofty ambitions for the country, Nigeria. We were the ones termed the greater tomorrow. I entered secondary school in 78. We were the ones who Uncle Bola came and informed that we were the young pioneers. So we had lofty ideas in our heads, and I grew up with that. Nigeria was supposed to be a great country. All kind of lofty slogans were very, very trendy in my youth. Operation Feed the Nation, all kind of big words. So I grew up believing that a great country, the giant of Africa, we were the ones who were there fighting in Swapo, in Namibia, offering succor to the South Africans. That was the Nigeria in which I grew up. I grew up in a Nigeria where when I went to UCH as a young boy, maybe must have been about 7, 8. I still have the memory. Nurses in dainty dresses with dainty caps on their head. They will bring my medicine in cups, plastic dispensing cups in UCH. I can still remember. I went back to the same UCH a few years ago when my late father-in-law was admitted there. It stinks to high heaven. Nothing new, just you find them painting a sepulcher. That is the Nigeria that we have today. So it's, to be conscious is very easy if you had grown up in my generation, because there were too many good things happening all around us. We didn't know at the time that we were merely witnessing the beginning of the decadence of Nigeria, but it was too easy to be conscious.
What kind of books did you read?
Name it, I read it. I went to Fidelity Grammar School, and I think before I was even in Form 3, I'd read practically every book in that library that wasn't a science textbook.
That wasn't a science
If it wasn't a science textbook, I'd read it.
Did you read books on power?
Everything and anything I was just a voracious reader, and I enjoyed reading.
And what did reading do to your mind?
It blew my mind up. I lost all sense of boundaries. You can't be a reader and be bound to a geographical location. When I was in Fidelity Grammar School, they had a very rich library of Commonwealth literature.
In secondary school?
In secondary school. Commonwealth literature. So, folk tales from New Zealand, from Australia, from Canada, all kind of Commonwealth countries donated books, literature books, compilation, antonyms. You had all kind of folk tales, volumes and volumes of them. It was fun. It was an escape. I'm right there in the bushes of Fidelity, but I'll be in the backwaters of New Zealand and Australia. I read Okuberry Finn. I read all those books when I was by the time we were in like Form 4, there was no James Ali Chase to read any longer, because there was nothing else to do but read.
So while you were reading, did you at any time feel you could change the world?
You know, the mind of a child does not embrace impossibilities. A child naturally believes that anything it can imagine can be achieved. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to change Nigeria. I didn't think there was anything to change. I wasn't conscious enough to realize there was anything to change. I just grew up believing that this country had all the potentials to become one of the greatest in the world. It wasn't until the time when we were entering universities in the mid-80s. I entered university in 1985. It wasn't until around that time that you became more exposed to the madness of Nigeria. My brain opening slap was received in 1984.
In Ife?
In Ife. Well, that was 83, 84. That was when I got my brain openings. No, 84, 85. But I entered last week, 85, 86. So it was during my time in Oscars that I received that slap. What that slap did to me was that it forced me to recalibrate the way I engaged with my country. I hadn't done anything. I was merely going to class to read, even though there had been some unrest earlier in the day. And I walked into a policeman who was assigned to the neighborhood to keep the peace, so that students who are intent on rioting would not be able to riot. It was clear to anyone looking at me that I was going to read. I had my books on me. The man saw me. Simply because I didn't run like everyone he might have been encountering, he slapped me so hard that my books fell down. And the way he looked at me, I knew that even if he had cared to shoot, nothing would have happened. And by the time we grew older, we heard that multiple times, uttered by law enforcement agents. I'll shoot you and nothing will happen. So from that moment, I realized that it wasn't the nice rosy world that I imagined I was living in. So I became more conscious of all the madness that I had probably overlooked or not seen. And the more I looked, the more I saw.
Your books fell down when he slapped you.
Oh, yes, he did.
Did you pick up the books?
In all honesty, I can't even remember now, if the truth be told. The only thing I remember is that slap rewired my brains. It was a brain rewiring exercise. Any illusion I ever had about Nigeria disappeared in that moment. Any illusion of citizenship I had ever harbored evaporated with that slap. I knew from that moment that I live in a criminal empire where I actually am not deserving of any right as far as the operators of the system are concerned.
And how did you make up your mind to survive in that state?
Put it this way. The real victim is the person who is unconscious or unaware of his state of existence. I am a Nigerian. I wear no glasses in relation to my country. I see Nigeria in its ugly nudity at any point in time.
Ugly nudity?
Oh, very ugly country.
Your country?
Oh, very, very ugly country.
Are you ugly?
Unfortunately, every Nigerian is rendered ugly by his circumstances unless we continue to lie to ourselves. I spent 3 weeks in prison. I had no business being there. And I saw multiple persons who had no business in that prison either.
In Ekiti?
Yes. Multiple persons. There were 11 persons in my cell. I vouchsafed that at least 9 of them had no business being there.
What were they doing there?
The Nigerian state decided that they should spend some time there. Maybe somebody offended someone, maybe some civil case that should have been settled in a civil manner or in civil court was criminalized because somebody knew policeman.